Yes, you did. Made it weird. What's happening, weirdos? Welcome to our third video podcast, or our 900th, if you're listening to this old school, which I hope you are. I'll always love my audio friends, but hello to our new video friends. This is Ben Stiller. He's an actor and a comedian and a director. He directed my favorite show of this past year, which was called Severance. Ever heard of it? It's incredible. It's on Apple TV. I absolutely recommend that you check that out. And if you're in a need for a laugh, who delivers better than Ben Stiller? Check out anything. Why am I plugging Ben Stiller? He'll be fine. We're glad he did us a favor. So we're glad that Ben finally came in to sit down and chat. We really hope you love it. Check it out. Why am I being so weird today? We really hope you love it. Check it out. Nothing to plug is what I'm saying. Get into it. I was venting. I watched Press with You. If it's okay, we're recording now, if that's all right.
I'd like that, yes.
It's not a trap. I just don't like WKBBL. I'm sitting here with the man Zoolander himself. It's not that way. And I should say up top, I told your fine people that it's not a gotcha show. You end up saying something you don't want it in. We take it out. This is something we build together.
Sweet.
And
thank you.
And you're welcome and safe. And you'll have a good week to think about. If you're like me, you'll wake up at 2 a.m. and replay moments.
Oh God, yes. I just do that in life anyway.
I do too. I do too.
When it's not recorded.
Since I stopped going on social. I don't go on social media. I have the account.
What's wrong with you?
Dude, I mean, well, I saw you found the artist for the Severance opening on Instagram, which is
that's
such
true.
Good. It's, first of all, the music is incredible. And the opening, I don't think I skipped it once. And is that a fine compliment to that artist? I mean, they really nailed it.
Yeah, and that is true. I saw him on Instagram, but since then, I got off of Instagram.
Okay,
so
you're more on my side.
That's the one social media that I'm not on. I'm still on Twitter, but the Instagram I decided to quit. But before that, I just stumbled upon Extra Weg. That's Oliver Latta, the artist. That's his name on Instagram, and I was just blown away by his weird animations and really cool stuff. And it just sort of clicked, like, oh, this would be cool for the show. Yeah,
well, that's so. When I got off, we post, but I can't go on. And then when I heard that you found that guy on Instagram, I was like, am I being an idiot? Am I locking myself off from how art is consumed? You know what I'm saying? Like, am I
sure? Yeah.
Am I making myself irrelevant in some way?
I don't think you are.
Okay,
I honestly don't think you are. There's too many other pitfalls, that you get caught up in. Like, for every one Extra Weg, there's 40 or 50, accounts that you shouldn't be looking at that start you thinking about things. Like, for me, just in my life, I'm like, wait a minute, what's that guy doing?
You don't need this.
I should be doing that.
I got forwarded something. I'm doing a TV show right now, and I love doing it. And I got forwarded an article that had nothing to do with the TV show, so I read it. It pertained to something, but not directly. But then in the article, it was the show, which is on the bubble for renewal, and I was like, on the bubble, I don't need. I didn't need it. I didn't need it.
It's really you get bombarded with just things and pieces of news and information and events that just can totally spin your day into a whole different direction, for sure.
We talk about this all the time. We're so susceptible to priming. Have you heard of priming?
No, what's that?
Priming is literally, we're priming one another right now. If I say kindness, if I say patience, if I say silliness, which might serve this podcast,
right?
You're more likely to be those things. This is why advertising works. And there are all these great examples where they test how quickly someone walks through a hallway after having heard the word rapid or quick or swift or saw the preview for Sonic the Hedgehog. They walk faster. God. Ben, here's a better one. I'm going to make your day better because these studies changed my life. You get on an elevator. You're participating. You, Ben, are participating in a study. You get in an elevator. Someone hands you a cup of coffee because they have to tie their shoe. They go, "Can you hold this?" You hold it. Later, after the study, which has nothing to do with anything, it's a fake study. It's a ruse. They ask you, describe the man who handed you the coffee, right? Ben, if the coffee was cold, people say he was cold. If it was hot, people say the person was hot. This is the world we're living in. So one comment.
Whoa. Wait a minute.
Whoa.
Let's go back a second. Okay. Somebody comes up to you or me and asks if we want to be a part of a study, first of all.
Yeah.
But it's a fake study, but it's actually a real study.
All the studies are fake. All the good ones, the study is bullshit. You get in there and they're like, which one's a circle? And you think you do great.
But it's a real study about priming. That's what it's called? Priming?
Yeah, priming.
So somebody's doing a study on priming, but they tell you they're doing a fake study on something else, which seems ethically already, it's like a little bit weird to me.
All of science, Ben, all of science is like covert
who's running
and suspicious. Study? Yes, because they know, because human, like, you read those studies. This actually kind of ties into Severance, which, by the way, I want to say, I think it's the best show of the past 10 years. I really mean that. It's a masterpiece.
Well, all credit to Dan Erickson, whose mind.
We'll edit this out. We're going to edit this out. Dan Erickson, go to living hell.
All credit to me. He edited out.
Yeah, the clock is jumping time in the background. To me, Ben Stiller. No. What was I saying? Oh, fuck.
Are you talking about how these studies related to Severance somehow?
A little bit. It doesn't matter.
But can I just ask you while you're thinking about it? It's like the whole thing me. Okay, but the whole thing to me with this study about first of all, the hot and cold thing is like somebody's hot, like you thought the person was hot, good looking, or just hot, like warm.
No, warm. I said
like a warm person,
their personality is warm.
Got it. That's so weird. And now, you're saying people in life are doing this now, like intentionally, like in business meetings, people are trying to like manipulate, like it's a methodology that people have to try to get people to do things.
If you're smart, you are. I would say.
Right.
Door-to-door salesmen. I remember reading this somewhere. When you open the door, they would start nodding their head yes, and that was a micro prime. It was a way to prime. This podcast is a lot of priming. A lot of times and it's not by design. It's just I noticed when I would share my feelings, the guest would share their feelings, and
that's intentional because you're kind of interviewing too. So you want to you foster the conversation and take it in a certain direction, right? Sure. I mean, I feel like people do that sometimes consciously and also subconsciously, just in life for sure. Now I'm thinking about that in my own life. When I'm talking to somebody, when I want to, not like for some sort of malevolent reason or, to have some sort of an agenda of any type, but just sort of like when you're trying to connect with somebody, right? And finding common ground who you don't know, maybe.
I think that's huge. And what we're doing, I feel like, and I'd love to know what you feel like, so much of my life as a sensitive person is sending out little sonar. It's almost like I'm blind and like a dolphin or some animal like that. I send out sonar, and if you ping it back, that's how I'm sensing who's safe. Who not only who's safe, but who might I enjoy. So you might set out something self-deprecating, and if somebody sends it back your way, or I have to imagine you do that. Do you relate to that idea of like looking for like?
I'm literally thinking like when I say hi to somebody.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Just when you say hi to somebody you don't know, you're like all your sensors are out and you're just like, okay, how's this person going to relate to my hi? Are they going to be nice? Are they going to be straight? Are they going to be cold? Are they going to be, are they going to like, you can get us, or maybe I'm assuming, or maybe assuming too much about a person. I don't know, but like from just the hi, how they respond to that, you get immediately, you judge them on a certain number of levels, right?
Completely
right? Nice guy, strict guy, serious guy, all that.
And Malcolm Gladwell's book, Talking to Strangers, Malcolm did the pod not long ago, and he said the number one thing we should remember from that book is we're almost always wrong with our first impressions. I found that to be life-changing. Yet we think we're right.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's something hopefully you learn as you go along in life, that you definitely kind of put up your defenses sometimes and will assume the worst or assume something from a sort of a self-preservation standpoint. And definitely you were proven wrong a lot. I know there's so many people who I've had that experience with. I've also found, if we're talking about that when I allow myself to drop my defenses preemptively, if I remind myself, hey, this person is having the same reaction that I'm having to them when I say hi or when they say hi. So when I am aware of that and can go, you know what, I'm gonna be more open, that makes a huge difference.
I was just talking to Val that's my wife, about this, which is like when you're a kid, you go on a date and you think you're nervous. When you're a grown up, you go on a date and you realize you're both nervous. You know what I mean? Like, what lunatic? Nobody I would want to date would be just like fine and comfortable on a first date. Like, you have to be a little bit uncomfortable.
Yeah,
and
but that's also,
thing.
and that's just in life, just in life and encountering new human beings. And when you live somewhere like New York, where people are just, have their defense shields up all the time, and there's just, you never know what's going to happen on the street, and like, because it always could be like, oh, that could just be a crazy person, or somebody's going to attack me, or it's, someone's wrapped up in some life issue. And I mean, it's just, it happens all the time where you just like, it's almost like sensory overload. So you naturally, go to a place where you sort of, I mean, it's also different when you're recognizable in life too. I think we put up our sort of, some sort of a protective shield when you're walking through life, because you just don't know how people are going to react to you also,
Yeah. Well, I have to think it's at your level, it must be simultaneously sort of safer. You know what I mean? Like, there's times when it feels kind of nice. Like, I love David Letterman. I've said this a million times, but he said he liked being famous because it made the whole world like a small town. I have to imagine there's exceptions to that. And then there's times when it makes it less safe. Go ahead.
He was from a small town, wasn't he?
Yeah, and I've had that. I've had that thing, we're not supposed to talk about these things. It's gauche or whatever, but like, I've had situations where I go to a party and I notice like there's a chance there might be a couple comedy fans and they'll want to talk to me. And that actually makes me feel less anxious. Like, and it does happen. Like, somebody comes up and wants to talk about comedy and I'm like, okay, I can do this. And then I've had the opposite experience where you go in and you're like, this is the worst. I hate this. That was actually, I don't have a lot of pre-planned questions for you, but I was curious, how do you find being a public person? Like, do you enjoy it Letterman style?
That's a good question. I mean, it is. No, because the first thing I thought when you said that about the party, I was going to say, like, I have the exact opposite reaction, which I just don't. I do like parties, the idea of parties, and I am a social person, but I also at the same time,
of parties,
I like the idea of parties. I do. Of people getting to, and the idea of fun, and it's fun, and people are letting loose and having a good time, and music, and
you are. Can I just interrupt? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
We're so similar. I have a bit I do on stage where I go, I went to my first party after the quarantine, and it sounds so fun. The word itself is fun. Party! It's a party! And then you get there and you realize you're just improvising conversations, just yelling, where are you from? And one more, I'm sorry, I'm talking too much, but Gary Shandling said to Seinfeld, he said, when will I be comfortable at a party? And Seinfeld said, Gary, when you're comfortable at a party, you won't be funny anymore. So I just want you to feel in good company. You were saying
it's
parties.
Exactly what a party is, though. It's like going up to strangers and like having to start fresh. And a lot of the time, it is a lot of the time, if you are a recognizable person and you're going to a party in New York or LA, the chances are people know who I am. It's, I don't know. It's like a little bit of luck of the draw. But I do like it when it works out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like when I meet somebody who I like and we get into a conversation and it's fun, but there's that thing of like, okay, okay, here we go. I always feel that with my wife, we go to a party, like, here we go. Let's, figure it out.
And I was saying this to Elizabeth before you came on the call. I was like, this is what draws me to you, actually, not just as an actor, but as a person, is you seem sort of, you're not like a juiced up Hollywood. You're not like surfing on the wave of stillerness, like just like rocking it out. And when I watched you, look, this is not shots fired, but when I watched you on Howard Stern, I was like uncomfortable for you because Howard's a provocateur.
Right.
He's like, why you do Greenberg, no money. Why you do that for no money? And like, you haven't even sat down yet, but you haven't sat down. And he's like, I don't understand. You do Night at the Museum. I understand that's a franchise. Why? But then you do a movie like Greenberg? What's the cash for that? What's the cash? And like Robin's also trying to ask you what the cash is. And I'm just like, you, in a very human way, I mean this is a compliment. You're not slick. You're not like, wow, Howard, one for me, one for them. You know what I'm saying? Like you seem like a regular guy.
I tried to be that guy.
No.
The one for me, one for them didn't work out for me. I've tried. No, I like the idea of that. That's an old, but I feel like Howard, it's gotten much better with Howard. He's a friend.
That was an old interview.
Yeah, but his thing is, I mean, I literally heard him talk, like his thing is he'll talk about movies. Like, I want to see good looking people. Don't show me ugly. Another word for a character actor is ugly person. That's his thing. He just likes to relate to people on that level, which is great.
Yeah.
I definitely had that feeling of like, how am I going to explain my career or my life to anybody? And, I don't feel comfortable. Yeah. I'm not like a guy who just sort of like embraces the, like, this is my life and let's live it to the fullest every moment.
Right.
But yet I do feel that inside. I feel that, an appreciation of my life and being alive and, all the things that I have in my life and relationships and being able to live in a way that's really comfortable. Like, so really, I'm very, aware of that. But I'm also not the guy who's like, hey, let's make the most of this moment right now. What do you want to do when I meet somebody?
Or that gets adrenalized and juiced up at the mention of your career and just like, just kind of Jackson Pollocks all these bright colors. You seem... reminded me.
I admire people who do that, though. I admire people who can just live without any sort of sense of like, self-criticism within what they are and can be comfortable in their own skin like that. I actually think that's a great thing.
Yeah, well, then this sounds like a Charlie Rose, but really, how do you think you'd be as good at playing? Like Greenberg's one of my favorite movies. I love Greenberg, and Brad Status. These are a lot of real people, real human beings, you know what I mean, that are uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. Would you be as capable of getting on their level if you didn't feel it so much? It seems like not that big of a step,
Yeah, I mean, I guess both of those characters are, very specific characters, especially with Greenberg. I think it was a specific character that Noah was writing, and I was finding the parallels in my own life to it, which were there. But, I feel like almost it becomes more than like how can I show this as honestly as possible or try to do that? That's, you know what I mean? If it is something that I can connect with and try to somehow, allow that to come out, which is sometimes, a little bit more uncomfortable if it is something that's very close to you too,
Yeah. I heard what you're saying. That sound. I heard my own and it sounded like I was like, I was thinking about my next question. I really did hear you, and as you were saying I was like, but why do you do Greenberg for no money? I don't understand. You do it for no money.
That's what you really want to know.
It is, I'm really jealous of the freedom. But that's just question.
Like, you know what? Like, I did it because I love doing what I do.
I'm not asking. I am not.
I love being Ben Stiller.
There you go. You've done it. You've done it. I would love to see. That's like adaptation where Charlie Kaufman becomes Donald. I think it's Donald Kaufman, his brother. By the end, like push in the bush. It's like I've interviewed some poets on this show, and I always remember that they talk about like asking for another poem is almost asking for another heartbreak. It's like, so I'm wondering, another way to phrase what we're talking about is, are you almost grateful, as I am in a way, for your access to those feelings of overwhelmed or anxiety or sadness or fear or whatever it might be? Because when my brother's like, I love my brother. We're both weird guys, right? And we watch Greenberg and we see some of ourselves, and that helps us. That like ministers to us, right? So are you grateful for your access? Like, are you grateful for all of these weird, maybe even uncomfortable feelings because they make you as a better director, better writer? Like, what I'm saying is you wouldn't trade it to be like maybe like a simpler but happier person. Would you keep in this path? I'm assuming a lot with this question.
I would I think I might trade it to be happier. Simpler. I mean, because I wouldn't know what I was missing, right? I would be happy.
Wow. That is funny.
It's I mean, look, it's who I am. It's part of who I am. I think when you're able to access elements of yourself that are real, hopefully when you're acting, then that's a good thing, because hopefully then it's going to somehow connect and be some relatable. And
Yeah.
but I don't always it's not like every role that I get or think about I want to be that, but yet, because sometimes I feel like then you can sort of like be dwelling in the same stuff that you've done before too. So there are elements of that, maybe in a role, but it's not what honestly, I haven't acted for a few years because I've been trying to figure out what I want to do as an actor, and it hasn't been, as also I've been directing more and enjoying that. But it's a good question though, because I think the reason I did Greenberg is because I love Noah Baumbach's writing and him as a director, and it was just somebody I wanted to work with, and same thing with Mike, on Mike White, and so that's and they have a clear sense of that character, and they see something that I can bring to it, and I can connect with it, and then that's the collaboration, and so I get something out of it, but it's not something that I think if I was happy and simple. Sure, life would be less complicated and painful. But by the way, I'm not complaining. I'm not complaining. But life is, like, for all of us, is kind of crazy, right?
Pardon the interruption, weirdos. This episode is sponsored by our friends at Blue Chew. Guys, confidence can take you far in life. It can also help in the boudoir. That's bedroom, especially when it comes time to step up to the plate, and that's where Blue Chew comes in. Blue Chew is a unique online service that delivers the same active ingredients as Viagra and Cialis, but in chewable tablets and at a fraction of the cost. You can take them anytime, day or night, so you can plan ahead or be ready whenever the opportunity arises. The process is simple. Sign up at bluechew.com, consult with one of their licensed medical providers, and once you're approved, you'll receive your prescription within days. Yeah! The best part, it's all done online. So no visits to the doctor, no awkward conversations, and no waiting in line at the pharmacy. Blue Chew's tablets are made in the USA, are prepared and shipped direct to your door in a discreet package. With Blue Chew, men everywhere are excited to see the postman, because when your package has arrived, your package has arrived. Deal with it. Deal with that joke. I love it. So if you could benefit from extra confidence when it's time to perform, Blue Chew can help. And we've got a special deal for weirdos. Try Blue Chew free when you use promo code WEIRD at checkout. Just pay $5 shipping. That's bluechew.com, promo code WEIRD to receive your first month free. Free. Visit bluechew.com for more details and safety information that is important. And we thank Blue Chew for sponsoring this podcast. Boom. This episode is brought to us by our friends at Babbel. Listen, for most of us, learning a second language in high school or college wasn't exactly a high point in our academic careers. I'm sorry, Senora Centers. I'm sorry, Senora Comanettes. It wasn't very fun, and it wasn't very effective. Now, thanks to Babbel, the language learning app that's sold more than 10 million subscriptions, there's an addictively fun and easy way to learn language. Whether you'll be traveling abroad, connecting in a deeper way with family, or you just have some free time and want to expand your mind, Babbel teaches bite-sized language lessons that you'll actually use in the real world. Babbel's 15-minute lessons make it the perfect way to learn a new language on the go. Other language learning apps use AI for the lesson plans, but Babbel's lessons were created by 100 human language experts. Their teaching method has been scientifically proven to be effective. With Babbel, you can choose from 14 different languages, including Spanish, French, Italian, and German. Plus, Babbel's speech recognition technology helps you to improve your pronunciation and your accent. There's so many ways to learn with Babbel. In addition to lessons, you can access podcasts, games, video stories, and even live classes. Plus, it comes with a 20-day money-back guarantee. So you got nothing to lose. Get into it. Start your new language learning journey today with Babbel. Right now, save up to 60% off your subscription when you go to babbel.com/weirdo. That's Babbel, BABBEL.com/weirdo for up to 60% off your subscription. Babbel, language for life. I don't know, man. I'm of two minds because one, I would like to see people suffering less, but then the other part of my mind, including you, I mean, having just like I'm assuming you're like me, having just an easier access to just like a carefree, whistling in the meadow, a bird lands on you, this sort of person. I am the guy that's going like, I'm so grateful that Ben is struggling with a lot of the same issues that a lot of us are struggling with, because you make it into art and to bring it to Severance, I don't just mean as an actor. You can't direct Severance if you don't know what it feels like to be isolated from yourself. You know what, like, or what it feels like to be lonely. I mean, that whole show felt like a study in like a weird, everyone's telling me everything's okay, but nothing's okay sort of feeling. And if you didn't know what that felt like, I don't think you could do it. I don't think you could bring those performances out. You certainly get that look going. So I'm saying, like, thank God. Isn't that the point of life? We're suffering and we turn it into something good. Isn't that like one of the beautiful things of life?
Yes, I think that, you have to take your own experience and somehow, especially as a director, figure out how you connect. If you're not writing the material yourself, figure out how you connect with this material and how you can become part of it. And, what you find in it that connects with yourself. And I've actually worked on that, honestly, over the last few years, because I think as an actor, it's more obvious when you do it. It's like, okay, I got to figure out how to play this part. As a director, you have to figure out how to connect with the material and put as much of yourself into it as possible. And I think, but a lot of that stuff also is just sort of subconscious stuff that just exists anyway. And you just like relate to a feeling or an image or, just it's simple sometimes. It's just simple sometimes, like, okay, the scene says, he's sitting alone in his apartment watching television, and you just set up the camera in a way that sort of like feels like, okay, this is what that feels like. And all of a sudden, like Adam Scott sitting there watching TV by himself, and that's just there, he's there in the moment. It's just happening. And I'm feeling like, okay, I know what this is, and this is what it is. It's just sort of like, happening.
Get out of the way. Okay, so
getting out of the way a little. Yeah, for sure. Not like feeling like you have to make any statement about it,
I won't tell the story because I like telling stories where I'm embarrassed because they're funny, but I won't tell the full story. But I met Paul Thomas Anderson at Largo, and I'm obsessed with Paul Thomas Anderson. He's my favorite director. And we almost got in a debate. I was like, how could that have been an accident? He was telling me something in the movie was an accident, was something that they just got out of the way and let happen. And now reading more and more about his films, I'm like, so much of it, almost like a dream, was about a feeling. Like you're saying, like the perfect symmetry of the Lumen office, right? Kind of craning up on as Adam's walking in the pilot. It feels right. You know what I mean? But like he probably didn't sit around going like, it feels right because it looks like a skull and he's so small and like the scale, it's a predator angle. It's a predator angle. So there's like a hawk, makes you think that there's a hawk coming to get him. Like you don't have to do that.
No, I mean, honestly, I can tell you, like how that came about. I didn't think of any of those things. And I think you're, but I think you're right. When, the thing that I love about Paul Thomas Anderson's movies is that they don't have a genre. He refuses to work in a genre, and it's just the story and it's the movie and it's the feelings and the images, and it's just what it is, like even if he in his head maybe has a genre that he's thinking of or he's influenced by or whatever, but he's not worrying about that. And to me, then when you do that, then you don't have to worry about satisfying any specific need of the audience, or, you know, like if it's a comedy, quote unquote, which I love comedies and done a lot of comedies, but there's something really freeing about working outside of the quote unquote comedy genre, because then you can do a lot of comedy if you want, and it's all bonus and people enjoy it, but they're not there going, when am I going to laugh again? When am I going to laugh again? And I think that sort of pervades the whole sort of idea of the movies or television shows that hopefully can just be their own thing. And, you know, I think that's something that's great that's happening lately. It doesn't happen. I think there are a few filmmakers who are doing it, like Paul Thomas Anderson, maybe Noah too, or, you know, in movies where they just do their thing. But movies right now are much more genre oriented, but television, I think, is like, there's a lot of room to kind of just be your own thing. Yeah.
And I'm obsessed with that. It's funny, when I got a chance to make a show, the first thing I did was sort of what you did. I probably learned it from guys like you, guys like Jim Carrey, and I was like, I would like, even though I hadn't been doing it for nearly as long, my first break, I was like, well, second break, I was like, I want to do what they call a dramedy, which really to me is like, I've heard you say that comedy is so easily judged. It's like, I'm either laughing or I'm not every 10 seconds. But like, there's not a lot of leeway or freedom or room to move in that restraint. Is that what we're saying? Or are we agreeing?
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's more like even like an audience expectation, or the way a show is marketed, you know, just something as simple as that. It's like, you know, like the new comedy, you know, or, you know, people, it just, people show up to a movie and, you know, they're told what it is by the marketing, and
they're primed. They're primed.
They're primed. Exactly.
They are. You're
They're
primed, and you go and
primed. Yeah.
One of my favorite movie going experiences was watching From Dusk Till Dawn, and I didn't know anything about it. So have you seen that movie? Like,
yeah,
halfway in, it turns into a vampire movie, and I was like, this is the best way to see this movie. Like, what a treat. I think I had the go ahead.
I was gonna say, it's kind of the best way to see any movie, you know?
Yeah.
Really?
I want to see everything everywhere all at once or whatever, and I know nothing about it, and I was like, great. That's the way to do it.
Yeah, I felt that way about Worst Person in the World too, like that one that came out. I just heard it was good, but I didn't know anything about it. That was great.
And so rare. We kind of want to know if we're wasting our time.
Yeah. Did you see that movie? I thought that was really good.
I haven't yet. I believe. Well, it's because we have a 3-year-old. I have a 3.5-year-old daughter. So movies are, and then you judge movies much harder. I know you have a daughter. You have 2 kids, right?
Yes.
And
they're
once
still
you're getting
technically kids, but my daughter's 20 and my son's going to be 17.
Oh wow. Oh yeah. You're still dad.
All right. I guess
I'm going to call it. Right. I'm going to call it. Your son just rides by on a Segway smoking a cigar. Oh, I think he actually looks okay. I don't think he needs you anymore. When I was 17, not to put pressure on you, that's when I really started getting interested in my father. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's like mom. And then like right around when you're, I guess, you know, becoming a man, you go like, oh, maybe dad isn't just, as Joseph Campbell said, the hairy helper. Maybe I can learn, maybe I can make an alliance with him. That's right around that age.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a pretty good relationship with my son right now. And my daughter too, but you know, it's, I don't know, man. I feel like the last few years have been so weird. They've changed everything in terms of, like a lot of positive things came out of it in our family. But just like being able to spend time with my kids, but yeah, I don't know. I feel like my son, most of his high school career has been during the pandemic, you know?
That's rough.
So yeah, like there's I can't go like, oh, when I was 16, you know, I was doing this. It doesn't correlate at all to what his 16-year-old experience has been, because it's complete. Like I was, you know, literally I was not living in a pandemic. I was out doing stuff with my friends. My parents were leaving us alone out of town. And, you know, so, yeah, which is good though, too, because I think sort of like with kids, you have to, I don't know if you ever had this thought, but like when you had kids, you had this image in your head of what you thought it would be to be a parent and what you imagined your kids would be like. Did you ever think about that? Like,
of course. Yeah, absolutely.
Like this sort of idea, this is what my son will be like. And he's not, he's nothing like that, which is great. He's just like, he's so his own person. So it's sort of like forced me to sort of abandon any ideas of what I thought it would be to be a dad, or, some fantasy idea of what.
Well, that's
my kids would be like.
another psychological study that I took a lot of value out of, which is like, the number I think is in the 90%, meaning it's so much of it is encoded in them, in their genes, in their DNA. And we think it's us. Somebody gave me the image of gardener, like maybe that's a trope at this point. I don't know, but like parents as gardener, like you're there to take weeds out when you can. You're there to give sunshine and water. And not to force this in, one of the things, I was just talking to Dimitri Martin about this, and I'd love to hear you comment, is he's like, you think you're just going to be assigned some kid, but like it's you, like it's another you in all these ways. And in Francis Ha, one of my favorite Noah movies, I'd love to talk to him about it because it seems like he set up a whole dinner party for 1 3-second shot. Maybe they multi-purposed it. They had to have. But it cuts to her at a dinner table, and she's going, people love their baby, but it's you. That's you. Like, oh, big deal. You love your baby. It's just you. And it cuts away. But it shows like she's having like a tone deaf moment with a bunch of parents.
Right.
Yeah, what does that make you think? Go ahead.
No, it just makes me think any parent is going to be not, is not going to sympathize with that because it's right. Because you love your kid so much.
Yes.
But, that I almost feel like it's almost a secondary thought where you do have to step back and go, wait, this is very much, my genes. And I'm constantly trying to figure that out with my kids. And like, I'm constantly sort of like going, oh yeah, that's like me. That's not like me. Because I do feel like they're both very, very different from each other too. They're just like very different people. And there are things in my daughter that I connect with that I can see in myself and with my son also, but very different too. So I don't know.
I think that's evidence to the theory, right? Is if it was you, then they would be the same.
Right.
But
and then there's also my wife who like, a lot, so it's 50-50, right?
Right.
I guess. Okay.
Yeah. I like to think I won out a little bit. Like just, I don't know. I'm a competitive person. It's like 73. I'm just kidding. Let me ask you this, because I really am curious. My mom was like, this was ridiculous. She was like, put Leela in front of the TV and put on your show. And I was like, that means nothing. That means nothing to her. I'm curious, at your age, you have a 17-year-old kid. That's prime Stiller. This is, come on, babe. I'm not saying Zoolander's not for all ages, but I mean, Zoolander's these are great movies. I saw something about Mary around that age. What are their feelings? That's a personal question, but I'd love to know, did they give a shit, or are they like, who cares? It's dad. We're embarrassed.
Well, it's definitely, I mean, first and foremost, I'm just dad. I'm their father, but they obviously know, especially as they've gotten older, they know who I am, what I do, and it affects their lives because they, all of it. So it's interesting. I think they both have a pretty healthy relationship with it, where it kind of is, there are certain movies that they've connected with. They grew up with the Night at the Museum movies. Because they were the prime audience for that at the ages that they were when we were making them. So they loved those movies because they were like 10 and 5.
Can I jump in and ask, did they think then maybe it was normal? Like, oh, dad's in a movie. Like, what movie is your dad in? Like, it seems like they don't know that much about reality.
Right. Well, that's why we moved to New York. We were living
because they might have an answer to that. Yeah.
Yeah.
My father's in Flubber.
Exactly. There's a little bit of a bubble in that world in LA. At least I thought, okay, I grew up in New York and I lived in LA for 20 years. I thought, okay, let's move out of LA so that we, aren't falling into that world where it is sort of like, interacting with a lot of people who are in that same world. So my son recently discovered, I'd say about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, just discovered Tropic Thunder. And to my delight, he loves it.
Oh,
and
great.
It's like, and he claims to be one of his, top favorite movies. And so that makes me happy because it's my son. My son likes it. Like it's sort of like, like I'm like, that makes me probably, as happy as anything. So that he connects with it. But there are other movies that they just haven't seen and they're not like dying to go see right now. And that's fine. It's interesting though, as a person, because it makes you look at your own ego sometimes and go, okay, gosh, I wish they'd, really wish my daughter would want to check out Reality Bites, but but like, am I like, I don't want to be the guy who's like saying, hey, you're 20 and this movie might really, you might really relate to this movie that I directed and acted in.
This is vulnerable, but I said to Val when she was pregnant, I was like, what? Because that's when she was pregnant when we were doing Crashing, the show I did on HBO. And I was like, I'm almost regretting saying this before I say it, but I was like, what are the chances when Leela is 16 that I'll be doing something cool? Like, I don't like that I'm saying this. But the reason I'm saying that embarrassing thought was that Val said, Pete, you're her dad. Like, she's not going to be like I've gotten so locked in that my value is something that I create. I create my value myself, and I create it out there. So I was like, why would she like me if I wasn't doing something hip? Tell me what you think.
I totally identify with that. I get it. Yeah. I mean, you want to be cool for your kids, and if you've done things that have been considered cool, it's like, hey, I hosted the VMAs back in 1998.
And she's like, what's a video?
Exactly. It sort of has the opposite effect telling her that. But it is that desire for them to like, hey, I've had it going on, and I thought about that. Yeah.
Have you had that moment though that like I heard you kind of demonstrated earlier, which is what made me think of it. You're their dad though. You're always going to be there. I mean,
right.
It's absurd. My dad, when I was a kid, was like a Greek god. You know what I mean? Like made of marble. I'm not saying like I worshipped his footsteps. I'm just saying he was a huge, Jungian, archetypal. What his words mattered, his actions mattered, a look he'd give me mattered, and I have to assume you had that for your dad. So they have that for you too. Like it doesn't matter, right?
Yeah, I mean that's just the parent-child relationship, and I think it's important to be aware of that and to remind yourself of that, because while our own egos want this connection with our kids where it's like they can see us as a cool person, ultimately, what you're saying is the base relationship is, being there for them as a parent. That's beyond anything. And so I have appreciated that through trial and error over the years, really, with both of them, in seeing where it, like where we connect and also what's important to them. And at the end of the day, it's like, I really, at this point, especially as they get older and they're almost on to the next phase of life where they won't be around the house. My daughter's moved out already, but she comes home every once in a while, but it's that appreciation for just like hanging out and being together and being there for them on whatever level. And it really grows. It's a great thing. I mean, that's what and then you just think like, I think of my feeling for my parents now. It's just sometimes, we can get in our own heads and not think about that as much, but that's the ultimate relationship, is just, being there for them.
What's up, weirdos? This episode is brought to us by our friends at Magic Spoon. I was just off mic telling Katie I absolutely love Magic Spoon. So does Val, and so does Leela. But as you know, I'm often trying to be healthier, trying to cut out carbs, sugar, and unhealthy food in general. But I realized I basically wasn't eating anything fun or good anymore. Well, enter Magic Spoon, which tastes incredible and is made in a much, much, much healthier way, certainly than those horrible for you sugar cereals that we grew up with. But it tastes a lot like them. Boom! They got their variety pack, which is all 4 flavors, cocoa, fruity, frosted, and peanut butter. It has 0 grams of sugar in the pack, 14 grams of protein, and only 4 net grams of carbs. And it's only 140 calories a serving. That means it's keto-friendly, gluten-free, grain-free, soy-free, and low-carb. It is healthy, yet super delicious. It's incredible. I actually had it this morning with Leela. I also often eat it at night when I'm craving something unhealthy. It's a wonderful alternative that you don't have to feel bad about. Go to magicspoon.com/Pete to grab a variety pack and try it today and show your support of this podcast. And be sure to use our promo code Pete at checkout to save $5 off your order. Magic Spoon's so confident in their product, it's backed with a 100% happiness guarantee. So if you don't like it for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. But remember, get your next delicious bowl of guilt-free cereal at magicspoon.com/Pete and use the code Pete to save $5 off and show your support of this show. Thank you, Magic Spoon, for sponsoring You Made It Weird. I'm so happy to hear you say that. I find you've been a parent so much longer, so I'm always cautious of sounding like I figured something out. But I figured something out in every relationship, and it's really true with my daughter, and she's 3. But like she's there for it, is if you can be with them. Like I said when I said, well, and I realized I was kind of Jay Lenoing you. I say that because Jay Leno would get shit for not listening. Why am I taking shots at Jay Leno? It's been 30 years. What I'm saying is, I feel that my daughter can tell if I'm there with her or not. And from what I understand, feeling like your parents are locked into you, even when it comes to something silly. We were singing a song in the car yesterday. Oh, Mr. Grinch. And I was, you're a mean one, Mr. Grinch. And my daughter went, no, Mr. Poop, right? It's a killer bit. And Ben, like, this sounds stupid, but I could almost get emotional. I said, oh, you're a mean one, Mr. Poop, and redid it. And look, I love my parents, and this is not, I love shitting on them too. This is not me shitting on them. It's much funnier when I shit on them. This is sincere. I just don't remember getting the feeling that I could impact my parents, like in real time, like change them. Right, you know what I'm saying? Like I got the sense that they were kind of spinning their own plates, if that makes sense. Sure. And that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. Tell me, do you get that feeling when you have moments of presence with your daughter? Like, this is what it's about. That's what I heard, like what you were saying. And really, this was the number one question I wanted to ask you. And I love it because it's baked in with some compliments. I've always been confused by you because you're a handsome, good-looking. I just do synonyms for handsome and it gets uncomfortable. I meant to swap to another one.
Keep going.
You're You're handsome. You're debonair. You have a certain joie de vivre. No, when I was young and I watched Ben Stiller's show, as I did. I think one time I met you at a party and I told you how much Running from Bears killed me, the Last of the Mohicans treadmill. Running from Bears is still hilarious. But I remember looking at you and I was like, look, there's a lot of comedians, I'm one of them, where you can be like, I get this, I get why that guy overdeveloped his sense of humor. What I'm saying, and I don't mean to make you uncomfortable, is good looking, fit. There's not a lot of fit comedians. And I'm like, what happened? What happened? Ben, what happened? Like, why did you, because for me and a lot of us, it was like, okay, I'm going to protect myself. What were you developing this sense of humor for? And I'd really love you to go as deep or as weird as you want. That's kind of the flavor.
Wow, that's a good question, man. I mean, it's not something I've even thought about, like where did it come from or the desire for it. I think it always came, first of all, I can't, I have to acknowledge that I grew up in a family of performers. My parents were actors and comedians and, working all the time. And it was just our whole life. So I think that it came out of trying to figure out how to find myself and like what I was going to do. And I don't know, man. It was like, it's definitely been this sort of push pull over the years because I knew when I was, 8, 9, 10 years old that I loved movies and I wanted to be a director. I loved directing and I loved making movies. And then the comedy part of it sort of came in and my parents just being known and being there always was stuff going on around our house. There were New Year's Eve parties and there were, like Rodney Dangerfield would show up at our Seder and, like crazy stuff where it was just like, it was exciting.
Oh, I just got passed over. No respect.
Yeah.
This horseradish is extra bitter for me.
Hey. Yeah.
Sorry. I wanted to see how many Passover Seder Rodney jokes I could do.
But it was exciting and fun. And I don't know, like, it just was like maybe it was like a thing like I got to figure out how to be a part of this, or I have to, I wanted to be a part of it. And we were going up on stage at a young age with my parents. They would bring us up on stage after they do a show or something and like introduce us in the audience or put us on the Mike Douglas show. And, like we were out there. So I think in my head, I was like, okay, this is it. I'm going to do this. And the humor part of it, I mean, I found the people who I thought were funny and I was like, I want to be like that. I want to do that. It takes a little bit of I don't know, like you have to have this ambition or something, or like sense of yourself. Did you ever feel that? Like a sense of yourself, like I can do this. I'm funny.
Yeah, you have to. I think you have to be sensitive, and I also think you have to be almost the opposite of that. Like believe. You have to believe that what you say should be heard. Like that's like imagine you're at a bar. One of us is going to get up and have a microphone and talk to everybody. Like that isn't a normal impulse. Like you're a child, and you're like you want to be a director. That's not just. You didn't want to be the DP. Yeah. Like that would have been cool. You're like, I want to be the guy that everyone has to check with me. Like that.
At first I wanted to be the DP because I was interested in the technical. Then I realized, oh wait, but the director is the guy who makes all the decisions and everybody has to listen to. But I wasn't the guy who had the ego where I could get up in the microphone in a club and do it. So it was sort of like a push-pull where I was like, okay, I can't do that, but maybe I can do this. And this ambition and this idea of like, hey, I can do this. And that definitely was there. And I think it to a point where I wasn't as self-aware when I was younger. I was just kind of doing it. I was doing it. I think, okay, I could do this.
Do you think it helped? I'm assuming it did. That your parents, you saw them both as normal people and as comedians that went out and killed but you also saw them making a sandwich and you saw them brushing their teeth,
Yeah, but I saw them as like it was always part of like the normal part of our lives or their lives was getting ready and doing the work and figuring out how to get to the next, place really, so it was always writing, or my dad was always working and he was always, kind of figuring out what was funny and whatever. It was just, it wasn't sort of like, hey, home life where we turn it off. It was just sort of like, this is just part of the fabric of our lives is always preparing or going off and doing something or going off to California for 2 weeks to do a sitcom or a game show and coming back. And yeah.
So it did normalize it. I wonder, this is a leading question. But I feel like you're doing great. And you're not going to agree with me just to be nice. I watched the Gilda Radner documentary and I was really haunted by it because she really seemed to believe the showbiz thing that like if the crowd is laughing, they love you. And if they're booing, they hate you. And we all have that, but we all have to sort of get over it. Here's the leading question. Did you feel like as a kid you watched your parents get that love out there and then maybe learn, wait, I can do that. I can go bring home the spoils, and I should, because, and again, leading, but like, if your parents were like me, they kill, they're happy. Everything's great in the world when you kill and something plays. It's like the best drug in the world is to connect and to find that perfect audience and to have the routine go perfectly or the film air perfectly or whatever. Do you think you that's when the chip got planted? Like, that made you like me, like, oh, okay, I'm going to go and prove my value. And added to that, was there a lot of love and attention to them, and then that made you kind of want to strive to get your own? That's the second part.
Yeah, I think it was all interconnected because it wasn't like there was a moment or, like, hey, they're doing that, I want to do that. It just felt like that was the natural correlation or the natural sort of like trajectory. Oh, they do that and they get, and people like that. And, the onstage laugh thing was something that I never really, I experienced it when I got my first job in a play when I was like, 21. And it was this play that was off Broadway at Lincoln Center. And I did a monologue at the beginning of the second act and it got laughs, and that felt really good. And it almost was like doing a stand-up act every night in the play because I would gauge the audience and it felt like that. And it felt really, it was exciting when it went well. But at the same time, I was also, wanting to do all this other stuff too that wasn't related to just getting in front of an audience and getting the laughs. So I don't know, but in terms of how it relates to my parents, I think my whole life I always was trying to figure out how to get my mother to like really, really, love what I was doing, and she did, but but she just was not the type of person who, she'd be like, if I'm doing like a silly comedy, she would be like, do more movies like Greenberg,
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I think she knew that I was interested in going in that direction and doing, more complicated, deeper stuff. But it wasn't always easy, when you're doing these movies that are big comedies. And I always felt like, yeah, I knew that she appreciated it, but I think, I always it was a tough thing. And I think, that was probably more in my own head than relating to her necessarily, because we had a great relationship. But that was definitely something for me.
I hear you though, but you're like me, and it's hard to sort of, you can't know another person's mind. That's the wisdom I hear you demonstrating there.
Right.
So you can't know, but you do know your experience, but your experience was also valid. So I'm going to say both. If you felt like it was hard, I feel that way. So I'm doing a multicam right now, and my mom, maybe it sounds like just from that one quote you gave me of your mom, do more movies like Greenberg. My mom said, quote, "Finally something we can watch." I mean, that's what she that's what she said. So, and there's this cocktail, Bono said it, I think. Maybe he's on my mind because I watched your Bono, the Bon Mitzvah, where he said you want a over-loving mother that's taken from you too soon and a withholding father. That's the recipe.
Oh, wow.
But it seems to me withholding from anybody is always gonna.
You want that for what?
To be talented. To be talented.
Okay.
Yeah. And he says it as a joke. He goes, "I was lucky enough to have both." This is like, we've done hundreds of these conversations. I've run into that a lot, that there's usually, and they become a phantom in your brain, like Phantom Thread, where he still sees his mother in the bedroom. Like he's still trying to please mother, or Psycho is another, but that's the other extreme.
That's the other extreme.
But like, I'm embarrassed how much it matters to me, what they think, even though at the other side of my mouth, I'll be saying like, "I'm not doing it for them. This isn't about them. I'm a grown man,"
Yeah. Well, first of all, it's great that they're there and they can still appreciate your work. Cause like, now coming from this experience and I'm happen to be working on a documentary about my parents. So it's been interesting to kind of delve into a lot of their work relationship, and my dad recorded a lot of audio when they were working and writing and conversations, and it's like, it was an interesting, complicated relationship they had that was rooted in love and but this real creative connection. But just to have, now that they're not there, that's the interesting thing, is to see or to feel how much I think about them when I'm doing something, and think about how they would react to it and all of that. I mean, even, I even think just like in my hair, like where I let my hair go gray, I think about like my dad would be like, "Oh no, don't do that." My dad would be, like, you just gotta keep a little dark in there. Just,
oh my God.
That kind of thing, that he like sort of like the show business thing,
Yeah. Just
so
run a little shoe polish through there, Benny. Just a little.
They like how they remember you,
Yeah.
Because he loved, it mattered to him that, his connection with the audience, it filled him with, a lot of joy, because he grew up in a very withholding family, and, during the Depression. And so his connection with making an audience laugh when people come up to him on the street really, filled him up.
Yeah. Here's that was another that sounded like I wasn't listening. It filled him up. He had a connection. I could repeat everything he said. I don't know why I'm planting in your mind that I'm not listening. You're not thinking that, but I keep making sure you know. I know why. It's because I watched that Stern thing. I was like, he's not even listening. Anyway, a long time ago. I wonder, I heard you say somewhere that your daughter is interested in acting, and is your son possibly maybe too? He's pretty young.
He's pretty young, but my daughter is going to drama school, so she's serious about it. Yeah.
Well, what I wonder if when let's say your daughter starts getting big on something like TikTok or something, if there might be like you're like, yeah, but it's not a film. I'm not saying you would say that. In the same way you do the Ben Stiller show, which was sort of your first big break. Mm-hmm. I wonder if they were like, yeah, but it's not in front of the live audience. There's no razzle dazzle. Mm-hmm. How are you going to know if it's working? I wonder if it was confusing to them that you're like, no, we do these sketches. It's on MTV. Like, do you remember their response to that?
Yeah, no, they got that because they were actually doing sketch comedy too. And I think they totally understood what I was doing. And they were actually a part of when I was starting out. I was making audition tapes for Saturday Night Live, and I did like a whole tape with a theme where I went to my parents and I told them that I wanted to be on SNL and I needed some material from them. And I did I have the raw footage of this thing I did with my parents where I'm telling my parents to give me some material. And then I went up and visited my dad, who was at the Williamstown Theater Festival. We did a whole takeoff on Death of a Salesman. I mean, where I went up to see him there, and he was having an affair with some actress, and I walked in on. I mean, it was this crazy psycho. I mean, it was, but they totally were there for all of it. They just were on board. So they definitely got it. I think they probably looked at me okay, Ben's doing his thing. And he really, is he has an idea of what he wants to do. So we support it, but go do your thing, Ben. But I don't think they ever didn't understand. That was one of the great things about growing up with parents who were actors, who I think they got that,
Yeah. Okay. I'm glad I asked. I couldn't have been more wrong though.
Yeah. No. They
what
were
a humiliation for me.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding.
No.
I'm kidding.
I think that was, if anything, it was more my dad sort of, and I can understand this as a parent, I could feel my dad wanting it to go well for me, and that protective thing as a parent of not wanting to see me have to go through failure, which you can't protect your kids from. You just have to let them do it. But he would try to, he couldn't help himself from trying to sort of protect me from that.
That's interesting. Was the Ben Stiller show viewed as a failure?
Yes.
That was a real question.
Yeah,
that was a real question. Because
it wasn't viewed. I don't think it was viewed as anything. I think it was just sort of. It was sort of it happened. And
your yes, though. I want your yes to be my ringtone with the exact pause. Yes, that was a loaded yes, and I loved it.
It was a very successful failure because it gave me the next opportunity. I had two failures with the Ben Stiller show. It was the MTV Ben Stiller show, which was we showed videos and did a version of the show, and then the Fox one, which we developed over a couple of years after that, and that was got canceled also, but then led to other opportunities. So
yeah, well, I mean, who cares? I also I had the Pete Holmes show, short-lived. You've never even heard of it. Those are the mugs back there,
nice.
And I don't consider it a failure, even though my joke is I don't think TBS even knows it aired. I'm pretty sure they're not aware of it. But as a kid watching it was, I'm sure you get this all the time from comedians. I was like, that was a thing that you saw and you were like, oh, there's other people like me. You know what I mean? That have the same sense of humor. I mean, now
just to be clear, at the time, I wasn't feeling oh, this is a failure at all.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? At the time, I was wow, we just got to do that one on MTV, and now Fox wants us to develop a show. And then 2.5 years later, we got this pilot done, and then they put it on the air, and we did it. And I knew it wasn't getting picked up, and it was kind of a bummer, but it was also oh my God, we did that, and it felt like things, were happening. And it was yes. Okay, that got canceled, but, on to the next thing. And so, yeah. So, and it was all fun, and it was all fun when we were doing it. For sure.
Yeah. No, I didn't think you thought it was a failure, but it was received as a failure. It's so funny to me. It actually makes me nostalgic for the time in my life. Not that I'm so Hollywood, but I just thought it was good and it was on TV. What a mitzvah. You know what I mean? I was like, this is incredible.
Right. But that is honestly how I think we all felt. Like I
Yeah.
remember telling my dad, like, hey, they're going to put this show on the air. And that was like really exciting. And then it was on the air and we were doing it and we were going to the network, the Television Critics Association thing. And we were,
Yes.
like I
Yes.
remember like going to Fox parties and, Toby Maguire was there with his show Great Scott. And like other, there were like,
Wow.
Herman's Head was having these other sitcoms on Fox because they had like 8 hours of programming a week at that time. And
Wow.
it was
Yeah.
just exciting because there's nothing like those first jobs when you're starting out. It's just like, oh my God, we're doing it.
I struggled a little bit. Chris Rock has a great line where he's like, when they take a comedian and give him a show, it's like taking a waiter and giving him a restaurant. And I relate hard to that.
Yeah.
When my show was done, we did 80 episodes. It was on every day though.
Wow.
Whoa, there was a fly in here. There are flies in here, and Ben, I want you to know I killed one like Obama, like I got him, and 5 minutes later he's up and about again. He's doing fine.
I have
He's a
ladybugs.
survivor.
I have a ladybug
No,
issue in my house. Yeah.
we had that at the Bennigans I worked at, and ladybugs as a pest, the cuteness factor is
Not
zero.
so cute. Not so
No,
cute
it's not cute at all.
Yeah. You get them on their back and those legs and the wings come out. They look like any other insect. It's the polka dots and the red
It's the polka dots.
Yeah. Where it's like a
Yeah.
children's umbrella. That doesn't work when they're on their back.
Then they just look like what they are, which is something from Dune, like coming out of the sand to kill you. It's an unpleasant bug. No, you this is we finally have our clickbait. Ben Stiller shots fired on ladybugs. What was I saying? Do you remember
about being having a
Oh yeah.
show.
You got a restaurant.
Yeah.
So I'm only saying this to see if you can relate. Is when the show was done, I had this like postmortem with almost everybody on the show, and I didn't even know there were problems. But there were. Like people were like, "Oh, there was this and this and this," and like there were times that I was feeling a lot of pressure, and they noticed that and felt that. And what I mean is, I didn't have any office managing skill. So I probably didn't know this on Crashing either, to like check in and make sure people are good and incentivize my workers and all this stuff why would I know any of that? What does that bring to mind for you with your first show? And it's your name. I think there's something about that.
What it brings to mind for me is just, it took me a long time, and I'm saying like maybe like 25 or 30 years of doing it to realize how important that is, the demeanor, what you put out there, if you're heading something up, and I think as a director, that's what I finally started to understand, because I used to look at it in a way that was much more sort of maybe sometimes mercenary going in, like, I'm going to protect the actors in this scene, in my first movies, and not thinking about how to talk to the crew, and not really understanding that, oh, wait, if I want to get the best out of everybody, then everybody has to feel that they're being related to on a really human and open level. And I didn't do that as well. And so I feel like it's taken me time. What you're saying is very relevant. When you walk in a room, just say, hey, because you're the boss, you're in charge. Everybody is kind of going off of your energy. And I was less self-aware for a long time about that, because I didn't think like, well, what are they really? They're really going to care about where I'm coming from?
Right. So it actually was coming from a humble place, but
humble, but then sometimes also less self-aware. And then I'll say it, like I feel like I could be arrogant sometimes and think that same idea of like thinking I knew what I was doing when I really didn't know as much what I was doing. But sometimes that like thinking you know what you're doing is what gets you through to be able to like actually go and make choices.
I completely relate to what you're saying. So sometimes what's happening is it's spilling over. It's something you need. You need to be able to like hype yourself up, and then it spills over a little bit in a negative way.
Yeah.
Or in a not helpful way.
Right. And that's just, I think for me, it was like just my youth and where I was at in my life and just not knowing that, and sometimes it's all mixed in. I think that's very valid. And, I think, let's face it, like when you're doing these shows, like you're doing a show and you're starring in a show, that's a lot of pressure on you. right? And then like, how do you kind of like let that be the fun sort of like, I love doing my show, and I love being Pete Holmes.
You know what the secret is that I've learned from going from Crashing to the show I'm on is don't be in every scene, don't write every episode. It was all this
Right.
That was like I understand. I heard Greta Gerwig actually say that directing was her favorite thing that she's ever done. We went and saw Lady Bird, and there was a Q&A afterwards. And I was sort of surprised at that point in my life that she said hearing someone else say what I wrote while I watched was way better than being in front of the camera. And now I'm slowly starting to understand. I don't know if that means I'm getting it out of my system or what. Is that what it feels like to you? Is there's like a settling, there's a maturity. I don't mean bad settling. I mean like the sediment has settled and you're more clear.
For sure. I mean, even just literally not acting and directing, the last few years, and just directing, just doing one thing at a time. The first day of shooting on Escape at Dannemora, which was really the first thing I directed since probably Cable Guy that I wasn't really in. It was so enjoyable the first day. I remember just having this feeling like, oh my God, this is going to be great. Because I love doing this. I love directing, and I love acting too. But directing and acting would be, it's the thing where like it'd be fun to set up the shot and figure out what the scene was, and then you have to jump in front of the camera and you have to do it, and that part.
Then you have to go back and watch.
Yeah, you have to go back and watch and decide if it's good enough or not, and all that.
Can't be good for acting. That can't be good. I would never want to watch The Last Take because it's like I think of Adam Driver who doesn't watch his movies and stuff. I'm like, I get it. You're trying to get out of the way, but you're directing your own movie. It sort of seems insane.
Imagine if you were that kind of actor and you directed your own movies. I don't watch my takes or the movie, but I will listen.
I'll listen to the cut.
Yes.
I'll listen to the cut and give notes.
That's the problem, because I want to be that kind of actor, and Owen Wilson's like that too. I don't think he's like, I think he told me just the other day that like somehow his son was watching Zoolander or something and saw a scene, and like he was talking about some scene in Zoolander that he saw for the first time like 2 weeks ago. And I was like,
wow,
so weird.
Okay. This is something I find that hilarious, and I love the restraint to not even try the impression. That was very fun. I hadn't even seen it.
Oh, that's pretty good.
It was Zoolander. I mean, I know you're good friends, so what was my character's name? I don't. This is a safe space podcast. We can try any impression. Here's a very okay. So the last thing I was doing, I noticed that I'm a comedian. And when I'm reading a script, I do think about what my character is feeling. But then there's this crust to the pie that I can't and don't want to shake, which is I'm thinking, what is the funniest way to say it? I maybe that's not the best way to get at it, but I happen to think it is. I know the writers laughed when they wrote this in the room, and I know there's the perfect, like cracking a safe. There's a way to say it. Maybe it's like Christopher Walken. Maybe it's like this. Maybe it's like, you have to find it. And it's about timing, and sometimes it's about tripping up your timing. And then I've worked with other people just recently that are like, I don't think about that at all. All I think about is what is my character feeling. And I'd love to get your answer, and I'm going to load you with a specific moment. It's something that Val and I love so much. It's in Starsky and Hutch, which I think is a perfect movie. I think it's wonderful. And there's that moment where you'd go, do it. And when I first saw it, I just didn't know. I don't want to make you uncomfortable. I just was like, what the fuck am I looking at? I'm laughing at a pause. I'm like, the line is do it. Now, I really want to know, were you, or if you were to do that today, are you thinking, okay, I'm Starsky, I'm undercover, I don't know how to be a guy? Or are you thinking what I would be thinking, which is, this would be funny. I'm just thinking, as Pete Holmes, this would be funny if he has like a really grotesque long pause in between it that is so weird, and that'll be funny. Like, can you help me into the process a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I can just tell you that It was a sketch it was a character that we did in a sketch on the Ben Stiller show, which was based on sort of like this impression of like a guy that I would, would be a friend of my Uncle Arnie's or whatever. So that's what it was. It was like, and that was the sketch. It was like the do it. We'd play with that. Like uncomfortable thing of like people coming up and asking for an autograph or whatever. And, so that was very calculated. Yeah.
So was it? Yeah, go ahead.
We were trying to work a sketch character into that movie but if you are, interested in terms of just overall comedically, I think like in comedies, you have a sense of what's funny and you have a sense of the tone of the movie. But I think it differs from scene to scene where you're just in the moment because you always want to be coming from just the reality of the moment. But, it's impossible not to know sometimes in your head, okay, this might be funny. I think that sometimes can be the enemy of originality, though, sometimes, because maybe if you've done it for a while, like, to the point where, you do have rhythms that people know that come naturally, but then they become a thing that almost gets written into something you're doing, right?
Right.
Or you've written it in, or somebody's written it, and that's the situation. So, but yet it still remains funny in that, whatever that situation is. I mean, and I love watching comedians or comedic actors do stuff like that, where where that timing is just, it makes you laugh anyway. But I think you're always trying to figure out a way to be, in the moment with it. And see where it goes. And but I didn't like doing that when it would be sort of like, if it's too calculated, I feel like, oh no, I shouldn't do this because it's too calculated.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do know what you mean. I think maybe I'm flattering myself and saying we're similar. What I do, and I can't help it, it sounds like you're the same. I know there's ways that I've done this in the past. I've done a joke like this. You almost like know the shape of the joke, the sound and the color of the joke. And you're like, I think it's this kind of joke. But I'm so worried about like not understanding. So I really want to know what the writer meant. I want to know like, and then maybe I'll forget it, but I want to know they mean it like this kind of joke. And then when you say action, or the director says action, I do try to throw it away, but I always want it seasoning whatever natural moment but just because, I don't know, maybe it's from being a writer. Like, I'm sure you've written things where it's like, you just want to go in and be like, you can't. I mean, some actors let you give them a read, but I always appreciate it. But you want to be like, maybe it's more like, maybe, you know what I mean? Like maybe try one. You're going, maybe. I really, when sometimes people go, maybe. And that's just what I was picturing. Like, that is why I'd be a bad director, because that's all I'd want to do. I'd try and nudge them towards what I was thinking.
No, but that's totally legitimate, because sometimes something's written that way, and that's what's going to be, that's why it was written that way, because it'd be funny to be said. Like when somebody's missing that, it's the most frustrating thing, I think, as a comedy director, because you're like, no, that's not. And the best actors that I know are always open to, if you want to, if you're doing a scene where there's a comedy moment and you say, you know what, they're open to a line.
Can I tell you what I'm thinking? When did it become, okay, I'm glad you validated me. I don't know when it became a thing. You do voiceover, especially in voiceover. Just tell me, like, you've already seen the animatic. Could you just tell me what it is? But like, it became this idea in Hollywood. Don't give them a read. Don't give them a read. Actors don't like reads. It's like giving me the answer, and then I can play with it, but I'd like to know the answer.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think my experience as a director is, if you don't give a line reading and the actor is good, you're going to get a lot of interesting stuff that's going to be organic, and then it might end up being really good. But it
might be better. Yeah.
It might be better. But if you have something in your head that you want to hear, then, you just, before it's like, you're never going to do this line again. So like, hey, can we just do one take where you try this,
Yeah. I love it. You validated
and I love it when actors also will come up to me when I'm talking to them, because sometimes I do try to do that, where I'm trying to tell them an idea or something. And sometimes they'll say to me, just give me the line. Hey, you want to tell me how to say it? And sometimes that can be great. I've had it though, sometimes where I go, you know what? There is no actual way, like there isn't a way that I necessarily want it. Just go do your thing. But, it's It's always, it's a give and take. I like when actors aren't that precious, where they're not worrying about like, oh, I have to do this, like they're open to whatever. Like, let's just, let's make it work.
Well, I think about that. I just watched Black Mass, the Johnny Depp movie, and I'm watching him, and I'm like, there's like funny moments. Like he's telling his son, you didn't get in trouble for hitting a kid at school. You got in trouble for hitting a kid in school where other people could see. And his son's mother goes, you shouldn't be telling him that. And Johnny Depp, I think I can do it. He goes, no, babe, that's exactly what I should be telling him right now. Like he says it sort of like without moving. See, I think this is how we think. It's like he didn't move. That made it funnier. Like he kind of made this like earnest face. Like he almost made an incredulous face. Like, are you kidding? This is like gold. I'm giving parenting gold. But I don't think Johnny Depp was going like, here's how the comedy works. I think he was just going, I'm Whitey Bulger. I'm a gangster. Like, I think that's what he was doing. But I don't think I'm him. That's what we've learned.
Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. Yeah, every actor is different. Sometimes they have a sense of that. Dramatic actors have a sense of the comedy, and sometimes they have their own sense of what it is, but it still could be funny.
Yeah. Let's get weirder. Have you ever seen a ghost?
Oh, man. I believe in ghosts.
Okay, here we go.
I have not seen one per se, but our family had a house in Nantucket, Massachusetts, and there was definitely, weird things would happen in this house, and So, feelings in rooms. There was like a baby who passed away in one of the rooms in like the 1910s. And classic. I feel like the ghost of that baby was in the house, and things would happen. But never have I seen an apparition, really.
Have you ever? There's really great ghost stories on this podcast.
Really?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of Brett Goldstein, who's on Ted Lasso.
He's great.
He has an incredible ghost story, and he told it so casually with all the charm of a Brit. And it was about like shit flying around the room and stuff, like weird stuff. What about anything? This is too general of a question, but like, can you tell me something that you've seen that you just couldn't explain? Maybe you saw a psychic, maybe it was a UFO, anything like that. Maybe I hate to be so grotesque and load you with this, but somebody passes and then they come to you in a dream, things like that.
Oh my God. God. It's pertaining to the house. I slept one night in the attic of that house, and I woke up like I was like I had one of those like when like you're making crazy sounds like that kind of thing.
You were.
Yeah. I woke my wife up. And I felt like somehow like there was something in that room was sort of like taking, like kind of trying to take
puppeting
over.
you.
Yes, puppeting me. Yeah, in some way. And it felt very unsettling. UFOs, I've never seen a UFO, or in terms of unexplained things. No, I mean nothing heavy like that. No, but I feel like the most supernatural thing is the experiences in that house for me were it.
Okay, that that was a great weird one.
Yeah.
You just said you were puppeted by a spirit. You were like, yeah, not really. That reminds me, Rhys Darby did that. He said that happened to him on stage. It was in Edinburgh, and they were like, it's one of the most haunted places on earth where your show is. And he was on stage, and he kind of got puppeted, and the whole audience saw it. Yeah. Nobody likes this story. I just did the Paramount Theater in Austin, and I Googled it to see what it looked like. And the first photo that came up was a ghost in the balcony. I mentioned it up top, but I was aware that there was a ghost. And when you mention it to the staff, no, they don't want to talk about it, and that never makes you feel good.
But I've heard stories about theaters. My dad was doing a play, and they were rehearsing at the new Amsterdam Theater on 42nd Street on Broadway. I don't think it's there now. It's been refurbished as one of those like.
That's an M&M store.
Yeah, exactly. But apparently there was a ghost in that theater that everybody knew about too. That was like in the
I don't
back.
care for it. I don't like it. How about this? Have you ever almost died? Is like maybe when you were a kid, got swept away by a riptide?
Oh gosh, gee, this, oh my God.
I'm priming you. I'm priming you for the religious section. We think about our
Oh
own deaths.
God. No, I mean the closest that I ever came, I think, to being afraid for my life like that was when I was scuba diving. I started scuba diving when I was about 14 or 15 in Nantucket also, and I ran out of air off of the like 50 feet down, and the instructor that I was with, who ran the dive shop, I was actually an assistant instructor. His name is Phil Osley. He still runs this store up in Nantucket, the Sunken Ship. He's a great guy. He buddy breathed with me and took me. I wanted to go up to the surface,
Of
and he
course.
wouldn't let me go up to the surface because he knew it was too rough at the surface, and I would have been knocked into the rocks. So
Oh
he
my God.
forced me to buddy breathe with him, and swim around the rock jetty that we were diving around. And so
There's no hand signal for that. I also ran out of air scuba diving in the Red Sea in Egypt.
I was
And-
diving in the Red Sea too, by the way.
Really?
Yeah, when I was a teenager. Yeah.
Why were you there?
My dad took me on a trip to Israel. We did a 2-week
Birthright?
father-son trip. Yeah.
Or
No, it wasn't
just-
birthright. It was just hanging out and visiting. Went to Jerusalem, went down to Eilat.
That's what I did.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was in Jerusalem and I went down to Eilat. That's exactly what I did. We probably took the same bus, which the TVs didn't turn off. It was the things I put up with. I feel like you're like me. I like to control my environment. I always have my headphones with me and stuff. And when I was in college, I just took a bus with blaring like Egyptian television for 6 hours. And I was like, I'm going to see the pyramids. Like I just didn't care as much, I guess, or maybe.
That just made me think of when I was doing a movie in Mexico in 1986, and the plane took off to go to Mexico, and it was like I think it was a Mexican airline, and I didn't almost crash, but like basically something happened and it lost power in the engine, and we had to go right back, and that was pretty scary too. I remember.
Oh
that.
my gosh.
Yeah, I just thought of that when you said that.
You mean it just went, it was like, thank
like
you for
took
choosing
off.
Air Mexico.
Yeah. Exactly. And then it just like, okay, we're going right back. And it was everybody panicked. It was a little bit scary. Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yikes. Yeah. No. I was going to say no me gusta, but that sounds like a Spanish joke. I would have said that regardless. We always talk about this. It's one of the things I told your lovely team. We like talking about spirituality, and without the burden of figuring it out or feeling like you're on the record. I'm just curious, do you have any, I love this part of the interview. We are aware right now, there's consciousness exists, like the feeling of I am emanates inside of you and inside of me. And that's a mystery. That's a mystery. We all agree on that. And I'm just wondering what your framework is for that. If you were to engage with that mystery, do you have any religious leanings or spiritual leanings? A good way in is often, do you think death is the end? Do you think it's meaningless? Go ahead. Go ahead, Ben. Do you think it's meaningless?
Fun with that one.
I'm also here. It's not a monologue. I'm here.
I hear you. Yeah, no, I mean, here, I'll tell you, I don't have any organized religious practices. I was raised Jewish. My mom was Catholic, converted to Judaism before I was born. I was bar mitzvahed, and my dad went to synagogue twice a year. We used to go, but I never really was religious. My dad though was, and he was very spiritual, and spiritual in his Judaism. I think his practice of Judaism. My mom was much more interested in alternate realities, and like when I was a kid, she was reading these Seth books. Seth Speaks.
Oh, the Seth books.
Yeah, and she was interested in quantum physics and all these different areas of alternate realities. And I have always gravitated towards the idea that there is something there, and I don't necessarily think that death is the end and that's it and it's over, because I have trouble sort of reconciling with, well, then what's the experience of it being over? In other words, what's the experience of not being conscious.
Well, something would have to be conscious to observe the lack of consciousness. Yeah.
Exactly right. And I have to say, since both my parents have passed, I feel a connection with them, and in a way that I think feel with people who are close to you when they're gone, and friends of mine who I've lost too. That sometimes it feels connected to something else, and sometimes it feels less connected. I'm curious. I'm very curious about that, and what else is out there in terms of what happens after we die. So my dad. I just felt my dad was like very connected to that, and like we took. He had, like, when we were kids, we took EST and we took TM and did all these different sort of
What's
consciousness. EST was the Earhart Seminars training. It was this very 70s sort of self-actualization course that then became something called, I think it was called
Dianetics? I'm just
No,
kidding.
it wasn't Dianet. It was.
Although in the
a forum.
70s,
It became something called a forum.
Oh,
There were a
okay,
lot of
yep.
people in Hollywood who were into it, but it was basically a training where you'd go for 2 weekends as an adult, and and Werner Erhard was the guy who ran it. Like, would basically like break you down and get you to the meaning of what is it. You have to get it. What is it? They parodied it in that movie Semi-Tough, I think.
I've definitely seen it parodied. I don't.
Yeah,
I don't
it
know
was
if
it was a big thing in the late 70s. And then my sister and I went when we were kids, like we were teenagers, and my parents had us do the teenage version and the kids version of it, which was pretty weird. But anyway,
what do you mean? What do you mean? Well, how was it weird?
Because it was sort of this adult, self-actualization course, but then they had kids do it. So it's like they're breaking down the kids over a course of two weekends, where like the kids to kind of get off of their bullshit and their act. They call it your act, drop your act.
Yes. And am I wrong? I think actors liked it because it helped you act. Like, it helped you realize you're always playing a character, so you can just play another character.
Right. Yeah. It was kind of a little bit crazy, I mean, there were definitely probably elements of it that made sense. But anyway, our family was always sort of exploring and searching, even though there were other things that we weren't searching at all, and like there was a lot of dysfunction too. But it was all sort of the 70s. There were so many different things going on. So anyway, for where I'm at now, I feel very much connected, I think, just spiritually with people in my life, and feeling that connection with people who are gone too. And I think there is something out there, and that we are part of something that is not just the sort of the consciousness that we have here in life right now, and these everyday moments. And I don't know, but I don't have bigger ideas about it. But I do think when you lose people who you love in your life, it kind of gets you in touch with what that feeling is, that connection, that soul connection that you have with people who you love.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love that. I've seen you take ayahuasca in movies. Have you ever have you ever done anything like that?
Yeah, I've tried, not ayahuasca. I tried another natural thing like that once, a number of years ago, where it was in a yurt, and it was with a bunch of people, and
we were all picturing a yurt. And before you said yurt, yurt.
Yeah, it was the whole yurt experience, and it was really, it was interesting. And I think I'm not someone who's taking mushrooms and experimenting every day, but I think there is something to those mind-altering substances that can open you up in a way to different perspectives on our reality.
Yeah,
we just do.
Well, maybe you tell me, like the EST thing. Talk about dropping your act. My experience with psychedelics, I don't really do psychedelics anymore. I'm retired, but like my experiences with them were kind of what you're saying. It's like, don't you see you're playing a part? You might be playing the part of son or brother, or now you shift. Your energy shifts. I've always wondered this, and you're an actor. Like, you see if I'm pretending to feel this way, I move this way. Like I might walk this way. This is how I sit in a chair. But that's what we're doing. Like you go into a pitch. I want to look comfortable. I might take up a little more space, or I might overcompensate and look relaxed. And when you take mushrooms or whatever you take, or through meditation, you strip away all of the stuff that I would like to say it's non-essential. You know what I mean? Like all of these experiences that you've had your life, they come and they go, but there's something that is essential to you that does not change. The thing that I love to give just as a gift is like the awareness, like it doesn't matter how old you are, but you're older than you were when you were 10, but the awareness doesn't feel any older. I'll say that for me. Mm-hmm. It's the same sort of mirror or screen upon which everything exists, and like sounds sound farther or closer, and images seem closer or farther, but really they're all put together on the screen of your awareness, which is, other traditions call it your soul or whatever. You might call it God. It's the knowing. In Judaism, the name of God is I am. So we're talking about emness. And that emness is you. So I think all of those are clues to your intuition that there's more going on here than just sandwiches and jobs and pooping and sleeping.
Yeah, though that is a big part of it, though, I think. Sandwiches are good. I know. I love that quote. I love that Warren Zevon quote when he was, he was sick and he knew he was going to pass away. That he said, like, eat more sandwiches. Enjoy but something like that. Yeah. Because he was like saying, enjoy those things in life, those visceral things that we can enjoy in life.
Well, we're back to hanging out with our kids. If you eat a sandwich, it's like a Japanese tea ceremony. I don't know if you've ever been lucky enough to do anything consciously. If you wash your dishes consciously, if you talk to me right now, we have an opportunity to do it right now. If you do this, drop anchor into the moment and realize that this is it. This is it. We can talk about our past. Right. This is it. Then I become, you're the universe to me. I'm the universe to you. And it imbues it with joy. So of course it could be taking a poop for real. Like if you do it completely, you see that the totality is in the small.
Yeah. I think that the ability to be in the moment. And also then when you do that, you kind of realize that you can't, as you were just saying, you can't be anywhere else. And I sometimes find that interesting when we're talking about stories and telling stories. You can only be where you're at in the moment in that story, that you're experiencing. And
yes,
right. You can only be there in that very moment. And I've sometimes found that helpful, with feelings and emotions, or, not, feeling sad or depressed, or, that understanding that, that's where I'm at now. I had my friend Stuart Kornfeld, who passed away, who was my producing partner for like 15 years. He was really into different forms of consciousness and reading about Zen Buddhism. And I don't know if he practiced, but he would talk about that, kind of the idea of like not being your feelings, or not that your feelings are just sort of like passing through you, or, and
they change. What doesn't
change? Right.
Yeah, what doesn't
exactly.
Change.
And if you can sort of somehow, and that's what that thing about the hallucinogen idea, or, ayahuasca or whatever, or like being able to get this perspective and stepping back and kind of seeing your being and your existence outside of being inside of it. So you can almost like floating outside of it. Then it's much clearer. It's like, oh, that's just that.
And that's what movies do that too with characters. You know when you watch The Sopranos and you're like, and Tony's always like, I don't know why I'm so stressed, and you're at home going, Jackie Jr. just got murdered, and you saw him as a son. Like right. It's so obvious,
right?
But that's one of the things story can help us with.
Yeah.
And I would argue that watching a movie is sort of like being a soul, meaning you're a detached observer, meaning you're the unchanging witness that can watch the drama. And even at parts, you get pulled into it and you forget yourself. You're actually in the movie. Like you are the movie. And that's like what we're doing with ourselves. There's a witness in us, but it gets obscured by whatever the fuck it is we're worrying about today. Like I spent 20 minutes worrying about somebody emailing me back today. I won't even remember that tomorrow. But the awareness is constant and always the same.
Right. Yeah. I also, this doesn't really relate to what you were just saying, but like the idea of watching movies, I always find that interesting how you can watch a movie and you sort of lose yourself because you're watching this thing that sort of that pulls you in and your consciousness is directed on that. But then emotionally, it can connect with you in ways that sometimes you don't, in your life, you can't open up. I mean, that's the amazing thing about art, that can sort of open you up in ways and affect you in a not intellectual way, but in an emotional way that you don't even necessarily understand.
Okay.
And be able to, yeah.
You stopped as if you're the host and I'm the guest. Sorry. I'm sorry. I just couldn't wait to compliment Severance. I'm not going to clear my throat and talk about how this isn't a plug kind of show. We're just talking, but for real, one of the great things about Severance was it filled a blank in a emotional vocabulary for a lot of people. You're talking about art can help us feel things and almost like exercise things that we can't let go of otherwise until we see them in front of us as a story. And I really think Severance goes even further in giving language to what it feels like to be detached from your true self, from your unconscious. I've heard it 95, I've heard 99% of our behavior is motivated through unconscious things. So literally there is a severed part of us in I'm pointing to my belly, but like somewhere in us that's trying to get our attention, that's trying to get just like Helly is trying to send a note. She's mad at her other self, but like, why do you do anything? You have no idea. Most of the time you don't even know. And before Severance, I didn't have an image for that. But now I have more motivation to be quiet and listen to myself and go like, is there anything you need to tell me? Like, let me drop. I'm the commander in chief. Tell me, is my job wrong? You know what I mean? Like, right. Is this the wrong? I'm very happy in my job and my relationship, but those are good examples. And that, I just wanted to compliment that as a metaphor for the unconscious.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's what Dan, was tapping into when he wrote it, but
bleep that out.
That's what I came up with. No, but that basic metaphor that I really related to was when, I saw that it was, these people talking like they're in the office or office space and doing this like funny banter, which is so familiar, but they have no idea who they are, what they're doing, why they're there. Right. And that to me is like the ultimate metaphor for life, really. It's like, that's what we're all doing here. I mean, and you can explore it and get deep with it and try to connect, but we don't have any idea what any of this is about.
And every once in a while you go in the back and people with animal masks dance while you eat waffles. Like, that's real. Like, for you, it was you got possessed in an attic. For me, it's I had a weird dream where I was traveling through time. Like, shit is all. That's why I like that question. It's like we're in the Severance office and I go, what did you see at your waffle party? That's how I'm pinging other people, because the foregone conclusion that we're just in an office and we do good and they give us finger traps. That's how I feel when people are kind of like, like not asking any questions about anything. Life. And I can do that too. I can do that too.
Yeah, no, for sure. And and I think about that a lot when I see people in life who are, who maybe it's going back to like the simple happy person, that we were talking about, like that idea of like, I do sort of long for that. But then I also wonder like, well, is that person really simple and happy? Or is there ever that moment at night where they're like thinking about like, well, what is this all about?
Well, I'll tell you, their innie is probably not happy and peaceful. Right. That's it. Like, I think we're all coping, and some of us cope by being like, I'm just happy Dan, and like whatever it might be. But whether or not you're acknowledging it doesn't mean it's not there. That's another thing that the show touches on. I also thought it was really important that you saw drinking, you saw healthy examples, painting. You saw people in all the ways that we're trying to turn ourselves off, like grief, like we just don't want to deal with it. We don't want to feel childbirth. But something we talk about on the show all the time, and one of the things that I think the show is kind of saying is like the innie needs to meet the outie. The light needs to meet the dark. As soon as there's manifestation, there is and there is not, right? That means there's here and not here. That means death. That means life and death, birth and death. That means happy and sad. But we just want to go around and eat ice cream. I'm the same way, I'm telling you. And then let me load you with this, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. So I did that show in Austin. I was nervous about it. It was 1,000 people. I was nervous about it the day I booked it, and then I was nervous about it, carrying it in my stomach for 3-4 weeks until I did it. And then after I did it, I was so happy. And I realized, I'm sure I've called my wife a million times and told her this epiphany. I was like, we think we want to do nothing. We don't. We actually want to do nothing after we did something. Like we want to do something that scared us and then have the day off afterwards. But then we're so simple. We go, let's just go to Hawaii for 2 weeks. And then you go to Hawaii and you're anxious and you're nervous and you're sad or whatever. Like you brought you to Hawaii. It's Brad's status. It's the same thing. Like you can't get it. So like to me, Severance had a lot to do with like, you don't want to face stuff, but all of life, all of the juice of life comes from facing and incorporating the darkness, the loss, the shadow, the ugliness. Like, I right?
Yeah, I think, I mean, I never really analyzed it that thoroughly, but I think you're right. I mean, that the idea of facing, it's truth too, right? It's just like acknowledging the truth. And I think with trauma, that's so much of what it is just acknowledging it. And then, and acknowledging that we feel it in our bodies and carry that stuff around. And I think that is a sort of one of the things that's going on in the show that I never even thought about that consciously, but it's so there. And I think, the idea of the show also is that, with Mark, it's always been sort of that idea that, there's his innie and his outie. And I think the ultimate sort of trajectory of the show over the course of whatever the life of the show is those, him coming together and becoming whole.
Yes. And this is our simple guy fantasy. We're back to the beginning. Is he just severed from his innie? You know what I'm saying? Right. I think therapy and spirituality, or whatever your direction or your path to the truth is, that's why, when I got divorced and I was embarrassed and I was like, I just won't tell anybody about it. And then all of the good stuff came from this podcast, came from me starting to talk about it. It's hard to believe, but in the early episodes, like, I don't really want to talk about it. And because that's what I was taught. That was modeled to me. Like, that's embarrassing. That's a failure. And to me, I mean, look to any major religion for symbols of this. It's like through the loss is the gain. And I don't mean heaven. I don't mean, don't worry, you'll be number one when you're with God. I don't mean that. I mean, it's through the humiliation. It's through the brokenness. It's through the, blessed are the poor in spirit. Like it's staring us in the face. And yet we go, no, to really win, you're Donald Trump, you have his hair, you got the jet, you got your name on the building, and you're getting a blowjob on the plane, baby. And we're like, that's not it. That's not it.
Yeah. No. And I think any growth comes from those moments of being in pain and being vulnerable, and because that's when you're most open to really connecting with yourself, and and it's scary, and like connecting with that fear of being all those, having all those feelings that we most of the time don't deal with, when failure or pain or a lot of it also, I think for me, I had a lot of separation anxiety because my parents went away when I was kids, I think, when we were kids. And I really felt that,
Your anxious attachment? Is that
what yeah, I guess so. Yeah. I mean, just feeling sort of like, oh, wait, am I going to be okay? Because, they would go away and then they would come back, and it wasn't like they went away for a long time, but that feeling, I think, was always like, oh wait, what am I going to be able to survive, and then you see you can survive, and that just fills you with so much, it's just you grow so much in those times of those low times and those scary times.
Everybody that listens to when I'm reading a book, the poor listeners have to hear me talk about that book because I'm reading it, and I'm reading Iron John. It was Robert Bly wrote that book about. It's called The Book About Men, and these tribes had this understanding that it was through things like fear and survival, and so they would manufacture it. It seems so counter to our like male initiation, right? It seems so backwards. But when I tell you that my divorce was the first moment I was like, wait, I can wash. My wife didn't do the dishes, my ex-wife, but like I can do the dishes. I can write the check. I can go out into Manhattan and hand out flyers and all this stuff. Like it came from what I didn't want. And as a parent, you mentioned it with your parents. I just want to protect Leela from all that. And in my heart, I know all of the good stuff comes from the breakups and the losing the job and the humiliations.
Yeah, from being sort of like cast out of, that whatever that comfortable space is that you create, because that's not where the growth is, for sure.
That's what Richard Rohr says. He says it's such a strange place. Mother Teresa said it too. God's inconceivable hiding place, and she meant amongst the broken and the poor. You've given us so much time. Let me make sure I didn't forget anything. Almost poop your pants. We won't degrade you with that. Wait, you laughed. Oh, I did want to ask why you're off coffee. I'm also off coffee.
Oh no, I'm on coffee.
You're back on coffee.
I am. Well, I might have been off it for a while, but I'm back on.
He's back on it, baby. I had one the other day, and my fists just closed, and I get angry. I really like coffee. I don't know. I haven't examined my real deep connection with it, but it's definitely like a morning thing for me. I'm gonna diagnose. If you listen to me with any authority, let's never look into it. Let's just enjoy the sandwich. Like we're talking about so many things. Right. That one we're just going to enjoy the sandwich. Good. Okay, you have a doctor's order for that from me. I did want to say real quick. We're almost done. You must get this every single day. But when I was handing out flyers in New York City for a club near the Comedy Cellar, you walked by me and you looked at me and you nodded and smiled. And I know this must be strange, but like I was like, that really meant a lot. I mean, this is when I was starting, not doing the TV show, when I was really doing it. I don't know if we ran into each other I don't think we did. But I mean, I was just a guy barking. And it really meant a lot to me. And now here I am saying thank you for that. Because you're out there, like it's the loneliest place in the world. God, and somebody you admire walks by. All you did was just like and I was like... The rest of the night, I was like, the rest of the week, I had to do it, did every day. So thank you for that. That's all.
I'm so happy I didn't curse you out.
Well, you did spit at me, but it felt like a friendly spit. And then the last question that we always ask, because we do get a little deep with that stuff, is can you tell me a time in your life that you almost pooped your pants? I go back to it. I go back. When's the last time you pooped your pants? That's not even it. I called an audible. I need it. When did Ben poop his pants?
You don't want to know. It wasn't when I mean, sometimes things happen, right? In life. That's all I'm going to say. All right?
I'm trying to think of the last time I did because I know it was for no good reason. There's no like, listen, I had tried a new restaurant. It wasn't like that. And I was just like, I can't believe this is my life. We'll spare you that one. Here's the real last question. Can you think of a time in your life, maybe you're a kid, it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be a good story. If you're laughing and tears are coming down your face and you think you might die because you're laughing so hard, when did that happen to you? What comes to mind? Just the time you laughed really, really hard in your life.
Oh, God. I mean, Gilbert Gottfried just passed away. I remember, and I actually put out a tweet about this. I remember flying. It was in the mid 90s. They had that MGM Grand airline. Do you remember that? Are you ever hearing about that? It's before your time. But there was literally this airline that they had where it was like first class, but it wasn't like supposed to be like a private plane, but it was like basically like 30 people, and it would be like a weird amalgam of celebrities and people who were, like I remember like flying once. OJ Simpson was on the plane, and there was a bar, a piano bar. It was like a weird thing. And
how did they make sure they just had Donnie Wahlberg?
They were trying to,
flight?
yeah. It was basically like that, but it was sort of like the alternative. Like, so like if somebody was going to fly you to LA, they put you on MGM Grand. They had their own terminal. But it was like a bad, weird experiment. And I remember sitting across from Gilbert, and I honestly don't remember what he was doing, but he was the type of person who would just do something and make you laugh. And then if it made you laugh, he would just keep on doing the same thing over and over again until you stopped laughing.
Yes.
Oh my God. So I don't even remember what it was, but I just remember laughing so hard. And I mean, it's the best feeling in the world when you're laughing that hard, when you can't stop. And
what's the second time in this podcast you were puppeted? Like, that's the feeling to me, is somebody's got the strings on you. And it's like an act of grace that they keep doing it. You know what I mean? It's like, please don't stop. Please don't stop.
It's so cathartic. That. Oh my God. Yeah. But I remember just feeling like that whole like whatever it was, 5 hours, like being so happy and just, like exhausted from laughing so much.
Yeah. Well, I don't know why I'm moved. Maybe it's because I love what you do and I want you to keep doing it on every front, but it's so strange how these things, silly things, Gilbert just saying something over and over and making you laugh, like that stuff heals our innies. You know what I mean? Like something, it's going deeper than we can go. You and I can be like, well, my mom was sort of gruff or whatever it might be. Like, but the comedy and the art, as a director, maybe you'll enjoy this, and then we're going to get out of here. But when you go to a movie, if you've done a powerful psychedelic, there really is something about the light and the focusing your attention. And there's something about the aperture of a camera lens. You know how a camera will take in all the information? You and I are panning and scanning. I'm looking at your eyes right now, but I'm blurry. Like if you saw a movie that was shot the way we filter out reality, it would be horrible. It would be like this sort of fish dome. Everything's blurry on the outside. But when you look at a movie, it flattens it out, and the lens is open like a dilated pupil. It's completely open and lets in all this light. And if it moves slowly, we have this opportunity to get more reality than we do when we're the camera. And then when you bring laughter into it and emotion into it, I believe I told you that the Meyerowitz report, I don't know if Noah had a similar family to me, but like, your character in that movie helped me understand myself. when you go, I beat you. I was like, oh my God, I'm trying to beat my father. Like, you know what I mean?
Me too. And, I mean, I honestly, right? Yes, for sure. I was tapping into very primal stuff there for sure.
And then when you fight with your brother, I have a very interesting, I love my brother to death. And that scene with you and Sandler, I related to that. We've never tumbled, but I was like, all I'm trying to say is I'm trying to put some fluff in your fluffernutter, is that like, I think it all matters. I don't just think show business matters, but I think everything matters. And I want to encourage you for some reason that you're doing beautiful work. Please keep doing it. And thank you for doing this podcast.
Wow. Thanks, Pete. I really, really enjoyed talking to you. You have really interesting ideas that you're thinking about, and the way you talk about them is really fascinating. And I loved how interested you are in all these different aspects of being a person.
Oh, thanks, man.
Yeah. Honestly, it's great to talk to you. So, and you're really funny too. And thanks, man.
This is unexpected. No, I just love it, and I'm embarrassed that I loved. That's so nice. We should be kind. Be kind. That was kind.
No, but that's what because you are kind, and you're open. You're so open to life experience, and I really, I find it's great to kind of get outside of the box a little bit in talking to somebody about all these different things, because everything is kind of interconnected, and that's refreshing. Right. So.
I completely agree, and people are going to love this. So it's happening right now. You're making something right now that people will love. This is silly. We have the guests say the catchphrase just to involve you. The catchphrase is keep it crispy. It's just to give the sense of closure.
Okay.
It doesn't really mean anything.
Should I just say it, or do I have to say like this is Ben Stiller saying keep it crispy?
Yeah.
No, I didn't say it. I fucked it up.
That was
I fucked it
perfect.
up. No, I said keep it crispy. Hold on. Keep,
This is,
I want to get this right.
already the best. This is the
No,
best one. Can I
it's
give you a
not.
line read?
Yeah, please.
No,
No, don't.
no.
Let me
I won't.
find it.
There's no right way to say
I
it.
hate when a director gives me a line. No.
It all comes back. Oh, here's a weird one. You can I was going to say do it as Greenberg writing a letter to American Airlines, and then you can just say keep it crispy. But that was really that was selfish to demonstrate how much I love Greenberg.
How about keep it crispy?
You made it weird.